Hey there, Light Warriors. David here from davidD.ca, where we talk about personal development, spiritual growth, and plant-based living. The three pillars that allow you to reclaim your worth, stand in your truth, and create a life you can fall in love with. This is part one in our series about saying no. We'll explore the limiting beliefs that cause us to say yes to way too much, universal laws, and what we can do to start strengthening those no muscles. So grab a seat and let's dive in. The idea of saying no is such a hard topic for so many of us. When you think about it, it's so incredibly simple. Just two simple letters. In fact, it's one of the first words we learn to speak. So how is it that we have such a hard time saying no? Perhaps it's that we exhausted our capacity to say it during our terrible twos and wrote it right out of our vocabulary. Or perhaps, as we grew older, we came to understand how unconventional it was to say no. Or perhaps that saying yes was the answer to being liked or making ourselves more appeasable to others. Whatever the case may be, so many of us struggle with how to say no. We say yes when we really mean no. We make commitments that we later regret. We get ourselves into situations that cause a lot of anger and resentment. So how do we bring ourselves to start saying no? Especially in situations when we really mean to say no but are saying yes instead. Well, for one, let's consider the fact that when no becomes a regular part of your vocabulary, when you do say yes, you will say it with so much more power and passion. It's really hard to be enthusiastic and passionate when we say yes to everything. When we say no, we begin to understand and recognize that our time is valuable and precious. We begin to respect our own worth. And when we respect our own worth, when we assign value to our time and energy, others will do so as well. Others will mirror that back to us. And we can only do that when we begin to say no. Now, for those of us who are incapable of simply waking up in the morning and saying no to the opportunities presented to us or the tasks that are asked of us, where do we start? Now, if you're anything like me, saying no is not an instinct or a reflex that comes naturally. It's not something that you can easily adopt overnight. It's definitely not second nature. So start by taking a breath. When something is asked of you, take a breath. Flood your brain with oxygen. Most of us go through our days so tense, always holding our breath to the point where the majority of our actions are based purely on impulse. We lose the instinct to breathe. So take a breath, maybe even count to 5 before responding. Allow that immediate urge to say yes and please someone else to pass. Allow your thoughts and your energy to shift and refocus on what is actually being asked of you and then respond. Now, this doesn't mean that you'll always get it right. In fact, it doesn't even mean you'll get it right the majority of the time. In the beginning, this may fail you, and you may still find yourself saying yes to more things than you really want to. But here's the magic. You are entitled to change your mind. I'll repeat that. You, yes you, are entitled to change your mind. You are allowed to recant a decision that you have made. So if you find that you've said yes to something when you really meant no, know that the majority of the time you can go back and change your mind. You can always go back and explain that you've given it further thought, and unfortunately this is not something you can commit your time or energy to. We can say no and practice grace at the same time. We can explain ourselves, our thoughts, and our feelings. Not justify our reason for saying no. There is a significant difference between justification and an explanation. We can justify our reasons for doing just about anything. But explaining our decisions, explaining ourselves, explaining our feelings is something much deeper. No one can argue your feelings. They're your feelings and you are entitled to them. Explaining yourself is an act of deep compassion, both to yourself and towards others. So if you find that you've made a commitment to something that you wished you hadn't, if you find that you've jumped the gun or under pressure or in the heat of the moment said yes to something you wish you hadn't, know that you can circle back with grace and explain yourself and recant that commitment. Now, some commitments we won't be able to get out of without jeopardizing or damaging our integrity. In some cases, we'll need to bite the bullet and do what we've committed to avoid the consequences or repercussions. And those are the moments that teach us. They cause us to pause a little bit longer next time before saying yes. Those are the teaching moments. As you approach these decisions, you'll need to be able to discern the difference between what your heart and intuition is telling you and what your ego is telling you. Our ego tells us no all the time. It causes us to miss opportunities and even to miss moments for connection. So if your motivation for saying no is coming from a place of fear or entitlement, take a minute to ask yourself, who's speaking? Is it your heart or is it your ego? Now in part 2 of this video, I'll talk more about the reasons we say yes to way too much. But in the meantime, let me know in the comments below. When do you struggle to say no? Is it in specific situations, with specific people, or in certain environments? Or do you just commit yourself to too much on a regular basis? Let me know in the comments below and let's start a dialogue. As always, if this video was of service to you, make sure to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and share it with your friends. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. Sending you love. Stay strong, warriors.